Now there was some news this weekend while you were out there drinking eggnog and partying with your family and playing board games. Matt Rule was busy, because he and what are people playing at? I don't know. That? Yeah, I played some board games. I played board games. Okay. While you were out there having fun with family and friends, Matt Rule made some hires, and there's a couple things I want to get to on this list because number one, Sip, is that there is a GM back in the fold for Nebraska football. Go back to Mike Riley, and Billy Devaney was his general manager for that. And we thought that was kind of interesting because we hadn't really seen that very often in college football, especially at Nebraska. But a GM role is back, and his name is Sean Padden. Will take that role.
Why is this significant to you?
Well, I would say this. I mean, I think in college football, more than the NFL, you see your coach is obviously your coach and GM, right? I mean, Nick Saban tends to be the GM at Alabama.
Yeah, I'd say that. I think
that's why they get paid a lot more because it's both duties in one.
Maybe he might have a GM, but go ahead.
But wouldn't you say that the difference between an NFL coach and a GM, a college coach is the fact they are both the head coach and the GM typically.
Yeah, right. Now we wonder how he. Okay, so this guy's interesting. According to Sean Callahan, who, by the way, Sean did a good job of identifying 9 hires.
9.
That yes, 9. These are full-time staff hires. They're not part of the 10 assistant coaches, the full-time assistant coaches. These are staff members, though. And what Sean does is he monitors the Huskers.com directory daily. Smart. Just monitors it. And yesterday morning, what happened on Monday morning is all these new names popped up on it. 9 of them, including, a general manager.
Sean Padden.
Yeah, Sean Padden. Now, we don't know what his duties are. As Sean writes, of all the hires, this one is probably of all the 9. This is probably the most high profile in terms of pay and title. Sean Padden has worked with Rule in 9 of his 11 seasons as a head coach. You see his background. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, he worked in the private sector at Kittman Labs before rejoining Rule. And before joining Rule's Temple staff, Padden was a corporate account manager at Bentley Systems for 3 years and an institutional representative for Forest Pharmaceuticals for nearly 6 years.
So people are going to say, whoa.
Here comes where's the football experience, people, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't, and this is why I'm not doing that as much because I don't know what his duties are going to be. What is this? Now, Jake, this could be basically a chief of staff, right?
Yeah.
Could be a chief of staff, like Jared Lambrecht for Scott Frost was a chief of staff. I think he could have worn the title of general manager too. So it's a title.
For those who don't know, what was his role then?
His role was incredibly multifaceted. So we can talk about that. Jared Lambrecht was Scott Frost's chief of staff. Jared's role. What was Jared's role? It was he would be involved in things like player personnel decisions. When there was, I don't know, when a player would exit the program, he was involved in making that transition, helping the player with that transition. I don't even know where to start. He was involved in virtually everything. He was the head coach's right-hand man.
Without getting any glory for it at all, right?
Yeah. Now he wasn't involved in X's and O's discussion per se. I mean, he wasn't I don't think Jared was probably in a lot of schematic meetings, but there's a lot on a head coach's plate, baby. I mean, there it is. I mean, it is almost too much. And I'd say Sean Padden will probably help alleviate some of the ancillary stress.
Let me say this too regarding a GM now compared to when Mike Riley was here. Okay, why I think it is more important to have a GM, if that is indeed what he's going to be.
I'm interested.
Because you've added different facets to the game. You've added the portal. You've added NIL.
Yeah, good point.
If the head coach wants to focus on winning being part of the actual product on the field, yeah, it's important to be a part of the other stuff too, because that's how you get players to Nebraska. It's how you recruit them here. But if you have a GM overlooking that to help you acquire talent, that's very helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Assuming they're on the same page.
Well, yeah. That's why I hired him. I'm sure he's that. But no, that's a really interesting point you make. And head coach right now in this climate he's pulled a lot of different directions.
Okay, so
always has been, but even more now.
The other staff members, we mentioned Sean Patton is the general manager on the staff. The other 8 hirees officially now on Huskers.com for Matt Rule's staff are Adam DeMichelle, an offensive analyst who had spent 10 years at Temple, also worked under Matt Rule from 2013 to 2017, and then was retained by 3 different Temple coaching staff. So he's an offensive analyst.
Here's the big one.
Next one.
Yes.
Omar Hales.
Yeah, he's huge.
Director of Player Personnel in High School Schools.
Yeah, and I think that's probably high school relations, actually. Okay. Director of Player Personnel and High School Relations. That's a huge, think about it. I mean, he's the liaison to the high schools, in state, probably out of state. Huge role. Okay. Huge role.
Omar Hales.
You are not as impressed.
I think it's important. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Of course it's important. Moving on. Mike Wallace, the director of scouting.
Huge job. I mean, the title itself says it all. Like, God, these are big jobs. Mike Wallace, we got to get to know these guys.
He spent 3 years at Baylor, and during his time there, nearly 24 Bears went on to play in the NFL, per Sean's report here.
Yeah, we don't know anything about these guys except the lines that were handed about their background. That's it. I wouldn't know Mike Wallace if he was sitting in my passenger seat when I walked out.
Unless it was like the Dolphins, Mike Wallace back in the day, the receiver.
Wouldn't even know him either. Maybe this is him. Are you sure this is him?
I don't think it's him. I don't think so. The next one, I like this title. Assistant to the head coach, Jarrett Wishon, is next. He was also that position at the Panthers for Matt Rule.
Before football, he worked a long career in law enforcement with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. They added explosives. That was from 2014 until joining the Panthers in March of 2022. He also has been a detective with the Charlotte, North Carolina Mecklenburg Police Department for 9 years. So what's he do? I don't know.
He is the assistant to the head coach is his title. That's all we know.
In case, I don't know. There could be a whole range of things that come up in a head coach's life, and that he could be helpful.
Yeah. So that's Jarrett Wishon. Next up is James Heiss. He's the Associate Director of Football Strength and Conditioning. He comes after spending the last 4 seasons at Buffalo as an assistant strength coach. As you put your jacket back on here. He worked with Corey Campbell, the new strength coach for Nebraska at Baylor in 2017 and 2018. Tyler Miles, Assistant Director of Football Strength and Conditioning. So he has a similar title as James Heiss. But he's been at Duke, Miami, and other schools as well.
So, keep going.
Phil Simpson, Defensive Quality Control. He was at a high school. We know about this guy. He was at the high school in Miami, Homestead, Miami, from 19 to 22. He was a head coach there.
Yes.
He went 23-4 over his final 2 seasons and was named the Miami Herald Coach of the Year in 2021.
It's a big. I mean, strike me as big hires. Yeah.
And then you have Kevin McGarry, the senior defensive analyst, who was also the head coach at San Diego from 1996 to 2003.
These names mean nothing to people, but here's the thing. If I were you, if I were a Nebraska fan and you're really, especially if you're not working right now, if this is
research.
If this is your downtime, it is a very critical time for Matt Rule because he's literally laying the groundwork in his program, and much of that involves obviously making the correct hires. These are critical hires. Now, these names mean nothing to people, Sean. Sean, Jake.
We telling Sean who wrote the article too.
Yeah, fine. That's what I meant. That's why I said Sean. Sean. These names mean nothing to people, but they would mean more if you go and research it a little bit and understand what's going on. These are bedrock hires. This is what he's going to try to get this program off the ground with. So it's a fascinating thing to watch unfold. Rule is impressive. Rule is saying things. Now, maybe you talked about it last week. But Rule is saying things that should be music to our ears.
I did say that.
Did you?
While you were gone. I did. Yeah. It was a big compliment fest for Matt Rule while you were gone by me on these airwaves.
I mean, one of the things he said that I really appreciate, I mean, there's a lot, but hold on. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get this. Hold on. There are the quarterbacks. See, I wrote down the quarterbacks that the Fox analyst Colin Cowherd ranks above Tua. We'll get to that later. Oh, I don't know.
Everybody,
I guess 15.
Everyone in the world, 15. Every quarterback in the league.
I thought that what he said about what I did, what Rule said, what I did at Temple, what I did at Baylor, that may not work here. I'm going to do what I have to do at Nebraska to fit the environment. And what did he say? He talked about the weather. He goes, there's ice on the field right now. We got to be able to load up and run the ball. That's straight out of, now you're of that kind of generation that you don't like to talk about Tom Osborne for some reason, but
oh, am I?
Yeah, but
that's news to me.
But that's what but that's what doesn't that a lot of you guys in your age group though, like, I don't want to hear about Osborne.
That's because a long time ago, that's why.
Yeah. But Osborne's thing, I got it. Osborne's thing was you got to run an offense that fits the weather, that fits the environment. It's just like Nebraska just hired a bunch of coaches that didn't, in Osborne's wake, didn't subscribe to that. Now, Frank obviously did, but then all these other guys were like, it doesn't matter. We'll just throw it around. I don't care if it's blowing on October 29th and in horrible conditions.
We'll make it work.
Yeah, we'll make it work. No, it didn't work.
It didn't work at all.
So Rule's kind of singing a different kind of tune. Rule, by the way, is he reveres Nebraska's success. He doesn't stiff arm it and say, I don't care about what happened in the past. No, he does care about what happens in the past. And you know what? Don't get me started on that, by the way. Terrell
Farley?
Yeah. I mean, he's sparked it was a little spark on the flame. I think about this stuff. I hate it. You know, one of the things I hate is when people say, I don't care about what those guys in the 90s have to say. I care, because they were good. And you know what? They knew what they're doing, and they were tougher than hell. And you should absolutely listen to everything they say, because that was the last time this place was good. Right?
Yes.
Sorry. I'll stop.
No, you're allowed to be angry and upset.
It drives me nuts when people do that. Those guys that's what Georgia is now. What Nebraska used to be. Those guys were tougher than hell.
Here's a take from John on the text line.
Thank you.
Can I read this?
I would hope.
464-5685. Call or text as always.
Or play.
John says this. It sounds to me like Coach Rule is adding layers of people and turning the head coaching job into its own corporation.
No, I don't think that's the case. This is what happens at big programs all over the country. I mean, you read the article about Kirby Smart in Georgia and how gigantic his staff is with a $7 million recruiting budget. You read that article, right? We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Remember the AD, what the AD said that hired him? That this is very applicable to this discussion. The AD who hired Kirby Smart recalled when Kirby was, interviewing for the job, handed him a flow chart with all of the necessary people that are going to be in the program, and the flow chart was too big for the AD's desk. The flow chart was enormous. The flow chart had, it was color coordinated with people who would be salary and non-salary, and no, this is the way it is now. I would say if you look at Alabama's program, look at their personnel. I bet they have more than Nebraska.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah,
expect that for a great program.
So this is what it is now. It is a corporation, basically, right?
So you have no problem with that description, then?
No, I really don't. I really don't.
That one guy says these programs have been corporations for a long time. We've just been a bad corporation.
Well, the record is the record.
The record would indicate you are correct.
Right.
That one guy. So there you go. We got 9 new additions to the staff, including a GM and Sean.
There'll be more. Yeah, there'll be more.
We still don't have a receivers coach, right?
Right. Yeah. And what else?
Linebackers?
Not officially.
Not officially yet. So the staff is not complete yet, but we have 9 additions from the weekend.
Yeah. I suppose we'll be having news after the first of the year.
I would think so, after the bowl games are over.
Yeah.